We'll start with introductions. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Katrina. I'm the HR manager at Amica HR, and I'm here today with my colleague Louise. Say hi, Louise.
Hi, I'm a HR assistant at Amica HR.
Today's podcast is going to be talking about how it's lonely at the top. This week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and in discussing this, we wanted to talk about a topic that's really close to our heart. We're going to focus in on how do you as leaders make sure that you've got support in place for yourselves or for those that support others in your organisations. We'll also discuss what part mental health first aiders can play in supporting positive mental health in the workplace and the concept of kindness in the context of mental health. We've got Ian and Gemma here today from Lives to talk about this with us, so I'm going to invite them to introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Gemma. I'm the head of fundraising at Lives.
Hi, I'm Ian Thomas. I'm the education and support specialist at Lives, so trainer of mental health in terms of what we provide to our companies and clients.
So what Lives does is inherently kind and supportive for our community and is so valued, but even more so through this current situation. So can you tell us more about Lives and their act of kindness for the community through this pandemic?
So Lives is a Lincolnshire-based charity. We're quite unique in what we do. There isn't another charity like us. Predominantly, we do first response. So when somebody calls 999, our volunteers attend medical emergencies throughout the county, and we train and equip those volunteers to be the very best they can be to be there and help those people in their hour of need. We also do a fantastic job of providing training. So we train our volunteers, but we provide external training through multiple different things, from first aid at work. And a recent addition is our mental health first aid training, which I'm sure Ian can tell you more about.
Yeah, I mean, as Gemma said, we provide training, first aid, pre-hospital care training to a large range of companies, both in and outside of Lincolnshire. And most recently, last summer, I did the mental health instructors course with Mental Health First Aid England. So we deliver their product, and that's predominantly around adults, and that's our focus at the moment, and there are various versions of it. And we just felt it's the appropriate piece to add on to that menu when we can support a business. So it's that health and welfare of their staff in that business. So from first aid through to their mental health. So physical and mental health, put the two together, becomes our health. And that's something that is very much a wave of conversation and drive through training across the country at the moment.
That's great. So can you tell us a bit more about what the theme kindness means in the context of Mental Health Awareness Week and what it can mean specifically at work?
Yeah, so mental health first aiders are the first point of contact for people who might need that support in the workplace. Those who might be struggling with their mental health or actually just need to chat and haven't realised that it actually is their mental health that's being affected. So a non-judgmental ear, that's the best way of putting it really, I suppose, that somebody you can trust, and the organisation has the support within itself of a team of those mental health first aiders. As I say, there's a long definition in the book, but that's probably my best way of putting it, is that somebody you can trust. And that doesn't matter what level within an organisation that is at all. Leader to employee on the shop floor, whatever it might be, the van driver, the cleaner, whatever it might be.
So when I'm thinking about comparing this to a traditional first aider that comes in and puts a plaster on a problem or gives you a sling if you've hurt your arm, so is it similar to that, or is it something a bit different?
I suppose there are still 3 Ps. The 3 Ps in first aid, there are those who know that. There's 3 Ps in this as well, in terms of their training. But it is very similar in the sense that it's a response, but it's not the same as physical first aid. And it isn't necessarily a plaster that you can deal with, or a bandage, or sit and rest, and an ice pack, or even if it goes further, we need to get that next level of help, whether that's to A&E or whether it's the 999 or whatever. It might take longer than that, but it's actually the first point at which somebody has that contact. So you respond first, but you're not the person that's going to fix the problem. You're not a fixer. You are part of a signpost and a support network that knows where the expertise is. And I say the first point of call is that ear, that first time that somebody needs to talk, and that somebody's willing to give that time and protect that time to listen.
And thinking about it in a different way, how could having mental health first aiders in the workplace actually promote positive mental health in the workplace?
In my experience, it makes a huge impact on the workplace, and it doesn't matter which way your business chooses to go at it, whether they go straight in with training for individuals, for first aiders, mental health first aiders, or whether they go in at the level of, well, let's raise the awareness around our mental health first. There are people have different approaches, and that I've worked with. And my approach would be start the talking conversation first. Raise the fact that it's okay to talk about it, and recognise that you've all got common things about how you feel at different times around your work role as well as outside of work. And it's getting that going. So I think that is really putting training in place and sharing that with everyone in the organisation spreads the word that actually it's okay, and that we're going to look at this, and we respect the fact that we all have mental health as an organisation, as a business, and that sends a big, strong message. And it needs to come from the top, or the top needs to be involved, even if it's come from the shop floor in the first place.
One of my concerns about having mental health first aiders in the workplace is that management can see it as a bit of a tick box exercise to say they've done something good. So does that work? Is having mental health first aiders in place enough to promote wellbeing in the workplace?
I think it has to be part of a greater, as what I was sort of alluding to with the last, as we were just talking now, it has to be a greater picture. Wellbeing of your staff is your responsibility as a manager. And no matter what level you are within that team, you are responsible for them. And like take it at the moment, people who are going back into work this week have some real challenges for themselves. And and our Prime Minister Boris said the same thing. You need to talk to your employer, to your manager. And that is so important that conversation has to happen about, well, this is what we're doing. Well, actually, I'm really worried about that. What do I do? Well, actually, this is what we've done. This is where we're at. And that listening. And I think sometimes that's the hardest part as managers, to actually put yourself out there to just listen to your staff. Some people are a little bit guarded about that, and actually the doors have been shut for too long, and you just need to open your door and allow that conversation to happen. Yeah, you can structure it, but allow it to happen. But it's part of a greater picture, isn't it? It's whether it's the workspace, whether it's the physical activity, the opportunities they get, the social spaces that in a workplace, alongside the fact that you've got the attitude and the approach that you respect people's, how they feel at work, and what that impact that has. So just taking mental health first aid, if you start that process, is going to open that door and ride the wave that we're on as a nation, both now in the current, within coronavirus and the pandemic we're in, to 18 months ago when it really started to filter through into various different levels of media and drama, TV, all sorts of levels, isn't it, that we've started to talk more about our mental health.
I think as a leader, in my team, I've had to realise that part of that sort of being not basically a nominated one, but maybe as a leader as mental health first aid training, in that one size doesn't fit all. And so I've had to realise that it has to be evaluated quite regularly, because what works one week doesn't work the next. So were you saying about it being a tick box? I think like any performance management, I think you have to evaluate what's working and what isn't, and what will work for one person doesn't work for the next. So as a learning curve for a leader, I think it definitely has to be at all levels and evaluated just like any other level of performance.
Yeah, totally agree. I think I made some notes around the idea of appraisals and that side, not only one-to-one with your team, and I'm part of a team as well, but equally I feel like I've got the ears for the organisation a little bit too, and just listening and watching people. And Gemma and I have talked before, and I used a lovely analogy the other day when we were talking, and I used it yesterday in the webinar because I really liked it, was the fact that the pandemic we're in is like a storm we're all in, and the phrase, oh, we're all in the same boat, isn't quite accurate at the moment. We're in different boats because each of our households and our workplaces and our lives, how we engage with life at the moment on a daily basis, is our boat. In our house, we have a dog, my wife and I, and then we've got our 2 kids who work on the front line, and that's our boat at the moment, and our wider family, who quite a lot of are in the 70s. So that's our boat, and we've all got a different mix to our boat within this one storm that we're in amongst at the moment. And then you add your workboat to that. I would, and I'd say, well, it's my workboat, and I'm sat in it at the minute. And at the moment, it's not doing this. It's quite level. So I totally get that. And it's that regular. And the wider part of it is knowing your staff. I've worked in various environments. I worked in a family business for 5.5 years, and I didn't think that within the organisation, people knew the staff as well as they really ought to get the best out of them. An interview question, typically I can't miss off the list, is always, how do we get the best out of you? That's a really important question in an interview. I think you learn a lot about somebody that you in that situation. And it's the same as an ongoing basis, as Gemma rightly said. The check-in we have now, how are you doing? Can you cope with that? Is that all right? Have you got what you need? Those sorts of questions that not all managers are, not that they don't think them, but don't always feel confident about taking that step of actually asking that question. And I think it as Gemma said, it needs to be structured into everything that you're doing, and then monitoring thereafter. And it's not heavy, that word, it's that you're checking in and that it's working.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it has to feel very genuine, and you have to really truly believe what you're asking. And like you were talking about listening, I think that can be one of the greatest tools in a leader's toolkit is listening. And when I talk about listening, I don't talk about hearing that you do with your ears. I talk about the whole listening with your mind, with the way you react, the follow-up questions that you ask to show that you're listening and understanding what is being said to you.
One of the key parts on the training course at all levels is about listening, whether it's the mental health awareness half day, whether it's the one day about becoming a mental health champion or becoming a mental health first aider. A key part of that, and there's some great fun activities that are involved, but it really proves that point about listening and about the follow-up and your body language that goes with that. Too many times I've seen over the years and worked with people where they've done a questionnaire with their staff and nothing's come of that questionnaire. And that is a listening tool you're using. But if you don't show that you've listened through that process, then it's devalued it completely. It's worthless. And the staff then lack the confidence to go, actually, can I? Ask those sorts of questions.
Yeah, it can be really damaging. I always say with questionnaires, never ask a question that you're not willing to actually follow up on the answer.
Yeah, and I think, we find ourselves in a situation where this is vital to us, particularly this next 3, 4, 5, 6 months as work starts to, and how the world finds its new place and new patterns, and it's just vital. And it's a massive opportunity, positive opportunity to actually change the way we work and think together across all businesses.
So thinking about sort of the practicalities of being a mental health first aider, I think one of the things I observe is that supporting others that are going through crisis or a challenging time can be really difficult for the individual that's actually providing the support. How are mental health first aiders supported to make sure their mental health is also a priority?
Within the training that I've done with it, obviously we represent Mental Health First Aid England with what we deliver, and their structured core. It's all based on evidence in terms of how and what's going on for people in general, and the proof in the pudding of how our course can be delivered. Hence why they're working so hard on making sure the virtual is going to work. Is about that you're trained and to understand yourself. For me, it was one of the greatest courses I've ever done. I think it joined so many dots for me about how I am and my little voice. We all have our own voice, and how you manage the things that have happened in my life. And I think that is a really huge part to making you a better mental health first aider. And then alongside that, you have those skills, you have the opportunity to put together a wellbeing action plan. That's what they're often called, but it's just what looks after you. What are your triggers? What do you know when your triggers are? What are the signs that shows that you've passed that point? What do you normally do? What have you got in place? This works for me. Whether it's walking the dog, going and playing your piano, put your iPod on for a bit, whatever it might be. And all those skills are given to you as skills to use whilst being that mental health first aider. So you have a really great understanding. And at the moment, there is some more materials out from Mental Health First Aid England that keep you up to date around being a mental health first aider. So some support materials that are available online to those people. There's CPD events, there's network meetings. I'm on one today, as I said earlier, as an instructor. And then you've got the whole CPD regular newsletter that's coming out as well. So, it's easy to keep it up, but that's the part of the support that person would need, is that, just keep us updated on what's going on. I want to know too. The senior management can't always do the training, but keep them in the picture of what's going on. There's a lot of
Is there anything apart from that organisations that are really committed to this structure can put in place to support their mental health first aiders? I
think, in my opinion, that should be having, like Gemma said, I'm a lead. You end up being a bit of a lead for mental health, even though she's not, as far as I'm aware, you're not trained in mental health first aid yet, but you have a great understanding of that. That's just the nature of the person you are. But actually, it's having that structure that within a team. So a company I was working with at the beginning of March, there are senior managers that have taken that training on, which is a brave move, but has been so positive already within that company. But within that team, they're going to have people who are checking. So you've got a buddy within that team who checks on you. So if you've been delivering a call or you've been supporting somebody, it's then the fallout of that, and you create a situation where it's safe and it's in data protection. Let's keep it politically sensitively right, but where you can safely pick up and support about what's going on as a team of people. And I think they've got a really good starting point. That's one of our case studies that we'll be following through as well. So
I think the important bit from my perspective would be to make sure that there isn't a hierarchy within that support, so that actually any level of support that you need can be at multiple levels. So I was speaking to one of our responders yesterday about the support that they've received when they've gone to a difficult 999 job, and he said that actually what was nice was that he got peer support, he got above support, and all those multiple levels where he felt somebody was giving him clinical support as well as friendship support was vital, because that combination of support wasn't dependent on time or whether they could book in time and all those sorts of things. So it's been really interesting, actually, that focus on mental health awareness and listening to how important it is. I don't think having support from one person is enough. It's that takes a village.
no, I agree. I mean, as I say, what that particular company had done was share that they wouldn't be in work tomorrow on some mental health first aid training. So it started a conversation across the workforce, and the workforce were then interested, and they were coming back on the second day saying, oh yeah, they were asking me what I've been doing. And it was great to hear that, such a positive message around that. But I think you're absolutely right, Jim. That in that company, I can see that filter will work, even though they've started, as I say, sort of at the other end of the race. I would have started at the other side. It's been successful for them, because I think part of that is because of the culture and the mixed cultures that work in that company. They just do talk a lot, and they've got that. They've stepped that up as a culture. That's the way they are as a company, which is great. But those companies who are trying to evolve that's more difficult. So my approach would always be do the awareness with everybody, or with everyone across the whole organisation. Raise that awareness that it's okay to talk. Have those sessions out, breakouts out of that, and then out of that group of people, whoever it is at whatever level, are interested in, actually, I'd like to do more about this, and then move that. And then it doesn't matter whether it's the director, or if it's in a school, it's the governor, or it's the chair of governors, or whether it's the TA, or whether it's a parent who then actually has a role that does that. And you bring in the right people. It's always about the right person, as you say, spread through, because it's not one person that can provide that support. You just happen to be the initial ear to start with.
I think that's one of the things that struck me from working with Lives and meeting some of your responders, is actually how well supported the people I've spoken to have felt by the organisation, and how easily signposted and accessible the support is. And I think that makes such a difference to people that do very stressful work and volunteering for the organisation.
Yeah, that open door, I talked about the closed door earlier, that totally, our organisation, doesn't matter who you are in it, somebody can pick the phone up or send an email and say, can we have a chat about this, or what do I do about this? Yes, it takes some managing at times, as you can might imagine, but actually it's the right approach generally. That just gives that feel of actually somebody's bothered and somebody wants to listen. And as Gemma said, it doesn't matter whether it's 7 o'clock at night, or whether it's on a weekend and you've picked up that, people will respond to it, and that's the nature of what we do.
Thinking about sort of the other end of the spectrum, we work at Amica with a lot of managing directors and owners of small businesses that have to deal with challenging situations that can be really draining for them. There's an expectation that if you're a leader, that you have to be strong and resilient. But even we found the most strongest and the most resilient people can really struggle with their own mental health after being in challenging situations, or during the challenging situations themselves. What help is out there for those people?
Well, again, I'd go back to the training awareness that we've said. If you've started it in your organisation, take part in that. Take the time to be part of that in some way, or get the feedback from it. At the moment, Mental Health First Aid England are going to produce a digital that doesn't take any instruction at all. It's just for line managers and managers in businesses, which is going to be a great resource. Hopefully we'll know a bit more about that today. And if anything else we can share with you, obviously we will do. There already is a line managers resource as part of the training that Mental Health First Aid England provide, and it talks about how you work with your staff. It talks about staff that have been off and then coming back into that staggered approach, that return to work meet, all that support. Those guides and ideas around that are in that resource itself. So I'm imagining that this digital one would be very much about taking you through that pathway and how that might work. And actually, for you as a person, how do you look after yourself in that process? And as I said before, that's the course is all about that. You can't just turn up on this course like you can for a first aid course. That's no disrespect, because I deliver those as well. This has to be the right kind of people, and they get that information about this is what's expected of you. This is what we're going to go through on the course. So there's that, and then for your leaders, I would just say get involved with them. Do that. Your wellbeing action plan that I talked about earlier is not a new thing. It's been around for years. And if you just Google it, there are lots of different structures to that, but that's the kind of thing. Build your own network. You're taught to build your own network. So we have a network, all of us, don't we? Both, as I say, the work boat, the home boat, it's those things. And how does that work for you? And even internally have that person. It doesn't matter what level that person's at. You need to build that support in and just be a role model, because you're looking for that in your staff. Will actually do that. Look after yourself. Take the time to go, actually, I'm going to respect myself and do this as well.
And so what would you say your top tips for people to proactively support their own mental health when they're in these difficult situations?
And you gave a great example the other day about sort of reversing the way people are talking about you. And I thought that was lovely. For me, it's about that role modeling. It is taking that time to go, well, actually, I'm going to bake a cake this afternoon. I'm going to take half an hour, I'm going to bake a cake, that's gone in the oven, and I'm going to do something different like that. And that could be something that you're doing this week with your kindness to yourself, or you share that virtually. I know my niece, that's something they've got into, because she wasn't really seeming to link with her friends very much, but she's now Zooming and they made meringues the other day, her three and her mates, and they were all on Zoom at the same time on their phones, making, where's yours up to? And that kind of thing, isn't it? But you role model, whatever works for you. Get involved in doing the goals at home off BBC website. If a 7-year-old can do it, why can't a 57-year-old do it? This is great stuff to get, and it's just taking that and actually sharing that. That if you tell your staff, actually, I'm going to play the piano for 20 minutes, is that all right? They might be like, whoa. And that might just be the real light bulb moment for someone else in the organisation, as well as the fact that it's more to them than I thought. And I think that's it. It's that breaking out of the shell a little bit. And that would be my top tip. And build your own wellbeing action plan, for whatever you want to call it. It's your response to when you're in that situation. When you know something's coming up, a difficult conversation, and we know this, Gemma, in the organisation, there are those of us in the organisation who have those difficult conversations because we feel more comfortable with it. But actually, equally, then you have somebody that's maybe talked about it beforehand, or talk about it afterwards, just to help that process of closure, in that sense.
I think my top tip would be to try and accept the new norm in the COVID situation. It was one of the things I struggled with the most when I got home, that I wasn't being as productive. I've got 2 small children. I've also got a puppy. What a ridiculous addition to my household currently, but a puppy, and my husband works from home. So what I found really difficult was accepting that it wasn't like a normal day at work where I could crack on and answer all my emails in the same day and be exactly as productive as I was. And I think I felt like I was beating myself up a little bit about it. But more recently, I have become more accepting of that and thinking, actually, what I've produced today is good, and felt okay with that.
I think the word guilt comes to mind there, Jim, and it's something that we talked about on the webinar yesterday with Urgent, that feeling of guilt actually needs to be evaporated by your colleagues and your managers too. That somebody said, and I always remember working with a boss who said to me, he said, I don't mind how and when, just do the job for me. And I think that's a really good thing to think about when you're at home, and how you're trying to just get the job done. And if it works, that we'll actually meet at 3, or we'll have half an hour now, and then we'll come back to that. And as you say, rightly say, and you've got a household that's, I've got a teenage dog, so look forward to that too. And he's a handful too, but he's enjoyed this. But it's actually an opportunity for us to focus on some other things as well and break out that actually, like we're trying to keep him quiet whilst we're on this today. But it's about managing that balance and actually respecting the fact that I need to do that bit there. And whatever your routine, one of the big messages through all sorts of people across our media is about having a routine. And I can't, implore that enough. You need a routine of some kind. Doesn't matter, it's all different for everyone, but you need a routine, just like you would normally when it's a work day that you were in the previous, pre-pandemic. But going back, there'll be a different routine, as we were talking about as a team last week. What we do going back to work, as whether we become more working at home and balance between the two, whatever that balance becomes, having a routine is really important for everyone. And that's why it threw you. And you're right, it's a good example you gave, throws it. And this week's thrown people as well.
I think I felt the same challenge as Gemma, and trying to get the balance, and I think still a work in progress. And I think if we go back to I had to change my thinking, and I went back to your analogy of we're all in different boats. And rather than thinking that I have to be in this boat, I get to be in this boat, and starting to try and find the positives of the situation. So yes, do you know what? It's really challenging working with a 3-year-old in the house when we're both working from home. But actually, I get to spend a lot more time with him and get him to see him discovering and learning new things. And that's actually really lovely and wonderful. And just changing your mindset slightly, and from the I have to the I get to, that's been really powerful for me.
Yeah. I mean, in my role, I've always had some time that I can work at home, and I live quite a long way from work, so that's also important. It's nice having the break sometimes, that clear your head, get your head focused with a drive, but actually it's nice sometimes to have that in a different environment around you. So it wasn't such a difficult change. I think it was really more about the fact that, inside your boat, I have a wife who has her own pressures of her own. She had a mental health illness as well, and we are working through that too. So that's part of our boat. And her team are having that, and her team had a massive difficulty with how they've gone from being one-to-one with people to actually, how do I do this at home? And actually the change in their tasks created another impact on their mental health, actually, by making contact with families as part of their role was also doing what we're doing now, where we checking in. You end up becoming the ears for that check-in, and actually that's not normally my role, but actually I've got to take that on, because that's what's going to happen when I pick the phone up and speak to that family that I'm normally supporting in a different setting. And it's that adjustments. I think that's the right word. I get this, but what are my benefits? What are my benefits all the time to that balance?
Yeah, I think that sort of links back to the theme of kindness again for me, because I think if we go back to the analogy of boats again, my boat was literally, I live with my parents, I've just finished uni, I don't have kids to be running around after, I don't really have anything other than saving money to focus on at the moment. That's where I am in my life, focusing on moving out. So my boat was literally work, home, work, home, work, home, not really a lot going on. And I think this is really, I remember at the time when we weren't sure if we were going into lockdown, weren't sure what Boris Johnson was going to recommend that we do, I was really apprehensive about working from home, because my boat had been on that same path every single day for nearly a year. And the thought of working from home was really daunting for me. And I was really worried that it would affect my productivity. Like you mentioned, Gemma, I was really worried that I would lose my connections with my work colleagues. I was really worried that it was going to impact my relationships with my clients. And I did that reframing that we talked about, and I started to realise, actually, no, I'm really fortunate to be in this situation. And there are a lot of people who are being made redundant, there are a lot of people who are on furlough, and I'm really grateful that I've got a job to come to every day, and it's something I really enjoy as well, which not a lot of people can say. And it gave me that opportunity to think about being kind to myself as well. So going on that, I have an hour commute to work every day and an hour commute home. I was living in autopilot mode, going through the motions as you do every day, and sitting at home and thinking, I can see how people talk to themselves, and I'm spending that time thinking about how I can talk to myself and how I can treat myself better. Whereas before I was like, I'm not going to have time to do that. I need to get here. I've not got time to do that. I need to finish this. I've not got time to do that. I need to do that email. I've got more time to think about, actually, I need to go for a walk right now. I need to get some fresh air. I need to get some sun on my face. I need to walk my dog, because those are the things that mean that myself is being looked after, and taking those steps towards kindness towards myself, I found really, really important, and I found it really helps my mental health as well.
That's a great example, Louise, and we've all got our own examples of that, I think. And I think I was talking to a friend of ours recently, and we were talking about how You might like your coffee shop, and you're all, yeah, 2 or 3, couple in the weekend, one in the night in the week, or whatever. You know, when we meet up with our daughter, that's one of the things we do. We enjoy doing that. But actually, you look back and think, well, it's actually the time that matters, not necessarily the coffee. Or sometimes it is the coffee's now. But we become to appreciate the things that really matter to us. And I like that you respect in yourself that whole idea. And I think, keeping on the theme of leaders, and we're saying how lonely it can be, but by doing that, it can break that barrier down. You might not feel so lonely, and the connectivity across your team, but equally outside of that too. And it's okay to do this. It's all right, because actually I can get a lot more done in half an hour at home than quite often half an hour at work. And we know what it's like. There's a chat goes on there. Somebody comes in talking, and you know, I know my wife's team, they joked about it, but I think it was a really good analogy. Their boss was quite frank at the early stages that they were battling with this change in balance, and this way. She said, well, let's be really honest. How many hours do we really work in a day out of our 8 hours? You're travelling here to this school there, to that parent's there, etc. with her role. 4.5, 5 if you're lucky. If you're lucky. So she said, well, let's work on that then. And that's what they've come to an agreement together that actually that is probably where they're at. So that 4 to 5 hours over a day, however it fits for you. And if I need to walk the dog, or I need to bake something, or stick the music on for half an hour and blow out the windows, that's fine, I'll do that. But it's productivity, as we've all sort of said, and it's great to hear your example. This is a lovely example of this.
Yeah, it's a really good example, and I think it would be such a shame if the business world doesn't stop and look and think and learn from this situation. And I also think that from a personal point of view, if we don't all just stop and think and learn, you know, see what we've learned from being in this situation, I think that's such a shame, such a missed opportunity if we don't.
Yeah, I think we've described it in our house and our family as a reset for the world. Whether you believe in a higher power or not, or whatever your beliefs are, it is a reset for us, and hopefully it will be a reset. And there are things we'll go, well, this really goes well now, doesn't it? Or things we thought were really good before in the way we did it. As you know, this is a much better way of doing it. And that's just work and home and personal and the balance of what really matters. And you know, in our family, the one person we can't speak to, we can't see, is my mum. She doesn't have any tech. You know, she's 77 and still doesn't have any tech. So how do we do that? And at the moment, we're thinking of another way now, because she's going to be in that position for a little bit longer yet, how we might try and facilitate that a bit differently, you know. But yeah, it's how what really matters, finding out what really matters to you.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank you both for your time, Ian and Gemma, today. It's been really interesting talking to you and finding out more about mental health first aiders and about lives and about how people can support themselves through kindness through these times. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And we'll share some further materials online, and feel free to contact ourselves or Lives if you have any questions or would like any more information.